everybody. My name is Devvrat. I am an assistant dean of admissions at Reed College. We're located here in the U.S., specifically in Portland, Oregon. And so I'm very excited to be able to meet you all today and give some tips and some advice on writing an effective college essay. The information that I'm providing today is not just about writing an essay for Reed. You can use this information to write an essay for any college that you apply to. So I hope that this is going to be as helpful as possible. And then please send me your questions in the chat box, and I would love to be able to answer them throughout the session. And then, like we said, we'll definitely have some time at the end. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So again, like I said, my name is Devvrat, Assistant Dean of Admission at Reed College. Sorry, I'm just going to go back one slide. So your college essay is the primary mode in which college admissions folks can get to know you as an applicant, right? We get thousands and thousands of applications a year. Just myself alone, I read over 1,133 applications between September and January this past year. And that's just me. And we have 10 of us application readers, not to mention we hire support readers to help us as well. So, these applications and these essays are how we get to know you. But just keep in mind that sometimes the college that you're applying to might also have a supplementary essay. So that's a secondary essay that they require. But some colleges don't have that. And so your one personal statement, your one essay is really the only way that we get to get some more specific inside information about you. Some of the tips that you're going to hear in this session also applies to other modes of communication. So colleges often will keep track of how we communicate with students. For example, if you email me at Reed,
I'm sorry, I think you muted yourself and we can't hear you.
Yes, we hear you.
Sorry.
No, I think some of the participants muted your mic. I don't know how that is possible, but we hear you now. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think I accidentally muted him because the audio wasn't working. So I tried to fix it for me, and it somehow muted.
Okay, no problem. I'm not sure where I got muted. So I'll recap. Essentially, what I was saying is let me turn the presentation back on. What I was essentially saying is your essay is sort of our opportunity as an admissions counselor to get to know you as best as possible. And being able to effectively communicate and effectively write are really important skill sets to have. Email communication, for example, especially with international students. This is how I communicate with international students. So that's a really important tool that you have. So just making sure that when you're communicating, even by email, that your writing is strong. We save all the communication that we have with each other. So if you email me, I will save that entire email conversation in your student profile. And then when I'm reviewing your application, I might go back and look to see where we've communicated, because I can't remember every student I've talked to. So this helps me keep track of it. Awesome. So neither analytical nor creative, the personal essay is a combination of both that reveals who the student is. Like I mentioned, this is exactly how we get to know you. A lot of colleges, especially small liberal arts colleges like Reed, this is exactly, we really focus on this idea of community and who is it that is within our respective communities, who is it that we're allowing in our communities. And this is what this allows us to do is get to see who you would be within our respective communities. We don't have you sitting in front of us when we're reviewing your application. I don't, when I'm reviewing your application, if I don't have you sitting next to me where I can ask you more questions. So the more effectively that you can communicate in your essays, the better I can get a sense of who you are as a person. In a lot of small liberal arts colleges, just like Reed, we do holistic reviews of applications. So what that means is when we're reviewing your application, we don't just heavily weigh on one thing. So I think a lot of people think we just look at the grades or we just look at your GPA. And yes, those are really important pieces as well, but we look at your application as a whole. And so we look at who you are as a person. We look at your writing skills. We look at the recommendations that people send in for you. We look at everything combined to make a determination about who you are as a person, because we recognize not one of these things defines you as an individual, but these are all things that make up a whole person and a whole you. And so that's what we're trying to get at. Sometimes it can be hard to think about what to write about. That's often a challenge for people. So we're going to do an objects exercise. So if you have a pen and paper nearby, this will be something that you can, if you can just access really quick, or if you have your phone in your hand, if you just open up like a notes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a list of questions. And these questions are going to help you think about specific objects in your life that you could potentially write your essay about. Or that you can write in a specific perspective of. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, if you have a pen and paper ready, that's great. Or you can just type this along on a phone or your computer. I'm not gonna, no one's gonna look at this list. This list is just for you. So the first question, and like I said, I'm gonna list a bunch of questions and think about what objects are coming to your mind. What's your favorite gift that you've ever been given? What reminds you of your family? What's the first thing that you see when you wake up in the morning? What's an object that represents regret? What is something you found? What represents your dreams? So these are just some questions to help you think about specific objects that you have access to. And the goal of this exercise is to show you that you can do this, that your life already contains amazing essay topics. I'll give you an example of an object that I would have written my essay on. So I don't have it right next to me, but my car key is often the object that I use when I'm talking about this project. And the reason I use the car key is because when I was 19 years old, I had just, I had graduated high school a year ago. I was in my first year of college. I was living at home, and my college was about 20 minutes away from me. And I was always late to class because the bus system was often behind, or I couldn't time the buses right to get to class on time. And I was just getting so frustrated by the whole thing. So at 19 years old, I had saved up $10,000 US, and I went and put a down payment on a car, and I bought a brand new car right off the lot at 19 years old. And I still drive that same car today. It still is the best thing I've ever purchased. And that car has allowed me to finish college. That car allows me to go to work every day and to meet awesome students like you. That car key, which allows me to use my car, it allowed me to move my sister into college, where she was able to go and get a degree. That car allowed me a lot of access, and my family a lot of access to things that we didn't have before. And so that's what I would potentially write my essay on, right? I would talk about this car key, but this car key is more than just a car key. It symbolizes all of these things. It symbolizes education. It symbolizes access. It symbolizes freedom. And so that's what I would probably break my essay into, is talking about it that way. So these are the 5 keys to writing a personal statement, and we're going to go over each one of these specifically. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just check if you are sharing the presentation? I don't see the slides. I'm not sure if students see them as well.
Okay, let me.
Because I know you were referring to a slide, right?
Yes, yeah. Let's see what happened.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
thank you.
Maybe
I
we
appreciate
can.
it. Okay, can we see it now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Now
I'm
it's
so
perfect.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
If you
Thanks.
notice anything else, let me know. I am sharing a slide this whole time. So what I was saying is these are the 5 keys to a personal statement, and we're going to go over each of these 5 things individually. So the first one is fill in the blanks. What we're not looking for is for you to write an essay on your resume. This is your opportunity to tell us something new. So oftentimes what I see when people are writing an essay is they will write an essay where they will list all of their activities or all of their accomplishments into one essay. And that's great, and I commend you for being so involved. The issue with that, though, is it's not telling me anything new. So when you're applying to a college using the Common App, for example, you will list all of your activities in the Common App. If for those of you that don't know, the Common App is an application system that allows you to apply to multiple colleges at the same time. So if you're going to apply to 5 colleges, instead of doing 5 different applications, you'll do one application and send that to 5 different schools. So in the Common App, or the Common Application for Common App is short, there's a page where you'll list all of your activities. As a matter of fact, that's the page that comes right before your essay. So I've already looked at what all of your activities are, so there's no need to rewrite your activities into an essay. If you want to talk about one of your specific activities and expand upon that, that's a great idea. But to write about all of your activities into an essay, that's just rewriting your activities list. Also, keep in mind that this is one of the last things that you have control over when you are when you're submitting an application, right? Most likely by the time that you're filling out a college application, you're in your final year of school. So, all the grades that you're going to earn, for the most part, you've already earned them. All the activities that you're going to do, you've already done them. There's not a lot of control that you have on your application, except for this essay. This is the one thing that you have the most control over. So really spend some time on it. My other advice to you is, if you are writing multiple essays for the same college, like for example, we have 2 essay requirements at Reed, don't write about the same thing for both essays, right? This is your opportunity to tell us as much about you as possible and tell us some new things about you. So for example, I read an application this past year from a student who really enjoyed hockey. And it was a sport that he enjoyed. It was a sport that he did his entire life. And he wrote all about hockey in his activities list. Then he wrote his common application essay about hockey, and then he wrote his personal or supplemental essay about hockey. And I just was reading this application, and I thought to myself, well, I don't even want to accept him because we don't have hockey at Reed. I don't know if he's even going to enjoy this experience. And so that's the kind of thing I mean, is when you're going to write multiple essays, make sure you're telling us new things for each essay, right? Again, this is your opportunity to get us to get to know you. So this is an example, and throughout this presentation, we're going to look at a variety of examples. And so this is a weak example. All the weak examples are ones that we made up. All the strong examples that you'll see are real essays of students that we've accepted into college. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this out loud to everybody. And then if anybody wants, I want to make this interactive. So if someone can tell me what's wrong with this, that would be great. So in the 10th grade, I was the captain of the varsity cross country and basketball teams. I also started 3 theater performances that year and helped with the theater tech crew. It was a busy year. Last year, I started a recycling program at my school and did research with a neuroscience professor at Portland State University. This year, I'm devoting more time to my classes, but still playing saxophone in the jazz band. Does anyone tell me, why this should potentially be a weak example?
Because it only lists what he's done and not what he's learned and more about himself.
Exactly. Yep. This tells us what he's done. This is listing some more of the activities that he most likely listed in the activities list. This isn't telling us anything new. Great job. So this next one is be creative with the everyday. You have to balance the daily versus the dramatic. We recognize that you haven't cured cancer yet. I always think about this funny story. I was at a college fair last fall in Colorado, and I had a student come up to me and profusely apologize and say, I'm so sorry. I want to apply to READ, but I have not started a nonprofit organization yet. That's okay. We recognize that when you're applying to colleges, you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. We don't expect you to cure cancer. We don't expect you to start a nonprofit organization. We don't expect you to do these huge, dramatic things. There's a lot that you can tell us about you in your daily, day-to-day life. Oftentimes, those dramatic stories about you only tell me about you in that dramatic context, but you're not going to be that dramatic being every day on campus, right? You're going to be this everyday self that you are right now when you're on campus. And that's what I would rather get to know. It's also important to showcase who you are at the time that you're writing that application, right? If you did something awesome when you were 10 years old, that's great, but that doesn't tell me anything about you as who you are today. That tells me about something of regarding you at when you were 10 years old. Now, if what you did at 10 years old has continued on and it's still impacting you today and you're still living within that truth, then that's fine and you can talk about that. But make sure you focus on who you are now as opposed to who you were when you were 10. So here's another example. The summer after my junior year, I went to Panama with my church youth group to volunteer. We worked every day building homes, playing with the children of the village, and developing an irrigation system. I thought I was going there to help people, but really, I was the one who was helped the most. Can anyone tell me why this was a weak example?
Because he didn't actually show how he was helped. He just they just showed that they were helped, but not how. So it's still left unfinished.
Yeah, great. Yeah. What else is there anything else that we have a problem with this essay?
Can I go?
Yes, please do.
So I think that the wrong part of it is because in your resume, you'll most likely write your volunteering work, and here it's like re-mentioned.
Okay, yeah, so this might have been listed in the activities list. Here's the other issue with this essay is there's a good chance, it says right here, you went with a group of people. That means that everybody else that went on this group also probably had the same experience, correct? So what makes your experience different than everybody else's experience? And that's what we're not getting here. And that's what we want to see. Awesome. So the next one is make sure to be focused, right? Narrow your scope. It's all about depth, not breadth. We don't want you to write pages and pages and pages upon content about one specific story. Really narrow your scope and be concise. I often think about this with this keyhole analogy. So imagine I'm walking into your room and I'm standing at the doorway and I'm looking around your bedroom, and I see, maybe I might see different colors of paint on the wall. Maybe you have posters on your wall. Maybe there's clothes everywhere, or maybe you're very clean and organized. You might have trophies or ribbons or medals. Maybe you might have a gaming system, or maybe you don't. Maybe you have lots and lots of books. That's a lot of information, right, to take in at one time when I'm looking at your room. There's so much happening there. Now imagine you close the door and you look through the keyhole and you only see one specific thing in your room, right? Your room has a lot to talk about, but I can only see one specific, maybe it's one trophy, or maybe it's one poster, or maybe it's one book that I'm looking at through that keyhole. That's what we mean, is it's all about narrowing your scope and telling us about one thing and how that one thing relates to the whole you. I often recommend using some sort of an outline method when you're writing your essay, because that will really help you be concise and have a good flow with your essay. So here's a strong example. I wear overalls to school, dark wash denim, baggy pant legs, and 2 straps over my shoulders, fastened tight by 2 copper buttons. I don't wear them for farming, painting, or railroad construction, but for the pure and sweet pleasure of wearing trousers that are held up by my shoulders. It's not an everyday thing, but when I wear them, I feel invincible. Who can tell me why this is a strong example?
It shows something simple yet very meaningful to him.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone else?
And it also shows a lot of details that make the admission officer have a depiction of what he or she is saying.
Exactly, yes. So this is taking, again, if I'm looking at this keyhole analogy, right? If I look into the room and I just see one pair of pants, right? Not even specifically a pair of pants, but these overalls, they're taking this very everyday common thing and really talking about how it impacts them, right? It makes this person feel invincible when they're wearing these overalls. These are just a pair of pants, right? Like if we're really thinking about it, these are just an everyday thing that we all wear, our pants. But how do we take the mundane? How do we take the daily? And how do we make that dramatic? How do we make that paint a picture to the reader, whether it's an admissions counselor? This is advice that you can take into your classrooms as well. How do we make that reader hooked to what you're saying with something that's so everyday and so mundane? This is, of all of the slides that you're going to look at today, and of all the advice that I can give you, this is the most important. This is called the so what. This is what the heart of your essay is, right? This tells us why your essay is important. And this is moving beyond the description alone. This is essentially, what is the purpose of this essay? What values is this telling me about the writer? What am I learning about the writer? I cannot tell you how many times I've read an essay and then I got to the end and I think to myself, I didn't learn anything about that person. Or sometimes I say this to my head after I read an essay. I say, so what? Like, what is the purpose of this? This doesn't tell me your values. This doesn't tell me anything about you. So make sure you're always thinking about, when you're writing an essay at the end, ask yourself, so what? Why is this important? What does this tell me about? What does this tell me about you? What does this tell me? What do you want the reader to take away from this essay? And if you cannot answer that question, you want to make sure you go back and revise that essay. Here's a great example. I do truly adore lobster fishing. My love for it extends beyond the obvious, past the fact that I make money, past the fact that I get to work outside in the beautiful summer weather. It extends far beyond the free lobsters, even past the blossoming friendships that I have with my colorful coworkers. I owe it a vast debt of gratitude. Lobster fishing opened my eyes to hard work and determination, and in doing so, allowed me to flourish substantially in high school. Can anyone tell me why that's a strong example? Anyone at all? So this tells me, well, first of all, let's contrast this from the overalls essay, correct? Both really strong examples, but what I'm hoping you'll see from that is that they were written very differently, right? This example about lobster fishing is much more straightforward, whereas the essay regarding the trousers, very much more poetic, much more, written with a certain sense of style. And these are still both very strong examples. What I tell students all the time, if you're not a poetic writer, for example, in most of your writing, don't try to be that when you're writing your college essay, right? Write in your own voice. If you're a more straightforward writer, that's how I write. I'm much more of a straightforward writer. I'm much more, share my thoughts and share what it means, and that's okay too. Don't write in someone else's voice. Write in your own voice. The other reason why this is a strong example is this tells me is so what, right? He takes something that he does all the time, lobster fishing, and he tells me why it's important. He says he owes it gratitude because it opened his eyes to hard work and it opened his eyes to determination. And this allowed him to then take that into his high school experience and use those skills within the context of his school. And that's what that so what is. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does.
Yes.
Great. This one is a little bit more obvious, but it's always an issue, so we always want to bring it up. Always make sure you proofread, right? Spelling always counts. Make sure you're looking at your spelling. Write your essay into Google Docs or Microsoft Word or whatever spell check system that you have, and then you can copy and paste that into your Common App or whatever application system you use. Spelling is so important. The thesaurus is not your friend. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen students replace a word in their essay with something that sounds fancier after Googling it because they think it's going to make their essay sound stronger. I promise you it's not. If it doesn't fit with the rest of your voice in your essay, it's going to stand out. Make sure you read your essay out loud. I still do this to this day when I'm emailing students. I will read it out loud to make sure that I catch my mistakes, because oftentimes when you're reading it in your head, your brain will ignore any mistakes that you make and will look over it. But when you read it out loud, that forces you to observe every word one at a time, and this is how you'll often catch your mistakes. And then I think I talked about this earlier, but be organized, right? Use that, use some sort of a outline of some sort to make sure that your essay is as organized as possible. Now, small spelling or grammar issues, one or two is fine. We're not going to throw your essay away or automatically deny you. But at the end of the day, those things distract the reader. As an admissions counselor, I want you to be here, right? My job as an admissions counselor is to be your number one advocate on behalf of you to the college. And my job is to sell you to my peers in order to convince everyone to admit you. And so when there's constantly mistakes or there's constantly these spelling errors or grammar errors, they just distract from that purpose, and they distract from getting to make a point of why we should admit you. And so that's what again, it's not going to count, we're not going to completely throw your application away, but it's just so important to catch some of these mistakes. I also recommend having one or two people look at your essay. Don't do more than two people. What happens is when you start having so many voices trying to correct your essay, you start to lose your voice and you start to adapt to their voice. And so that's just something to think about, is maybe have one or two people that you really trust, where they know your voice well, and that can provide you some of that feedback. So here's a weak example. I'm going to do this. We'll do this one together, and I'll point out why some of these things are weak. I think it's a little bit more obvious in this one. Reed is my dream school as a small university. We're actually not a university, we're a college, located in the Pacific Northwest. Northwest should be capitalized. Reed has everything I could ever want in a college. The psych programs, make sure if you're going to avoid using abbreviations, so write out psychology. The psychology programs emphasize on neuro, so it should be neuroscience. It's perfect for me. I am engrossed in the AP Psyche course. I love hiking and skiing. I know I'd contribute a lot to the classroom. We're missing there's some grammar issues in those last few sentences. I'm used to speaking up because my current school uses the Harkness method. Read is a place where I can metamorphose into a true intellectual. This essay, I could tell that they just Googled the word for transform and found the word metamorphose and plugged that in there, right? So this is a weak example because there's spelling errors, there's grammar errors, there's punctuation errors, there's clearly they're copying and pasting some big words that don't fit the rest of this essay. So that's why this is a weak example. That is everything that I have to share with you all. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have questions after, I'm going to answer all of your questions now, but if you think of questions after today, this is my contact information, so you're always welcome to email me. I cannot look at your essay for you or read it for you. That would be unfair, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the essay or about Reed. If you're interested in learning more about Reed, if you do choose to apply, I will be your admissions counselor, so I am the International Student Coordinator for Reed, and so I will be your admissions counselor. Awesome. That being said, let's talk about what questions you have. Feel free to put them in the chat box or ask them out loud. No questions?
Maybe we can wait a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, I think if you have any questions, let me know. In the chat box, I will also put my contact information just in case.
Oh, I see questions. Maybe you can scroll down.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Are there any college essay topics that we should avoid? What topics are considered cliches? That's a wonderful question. There are a lot of topics that we read a lot. For example, breakup stories. I cannot tell you how many times I have read a breakup story this year, or divorce stories. We get a lot of those stories. I'm not saying you shouldn't write about these. If these are really personal experiences that you want to write about, then absolutely do it. Here's what I would recommend, however, is think about a creative way to approach those, right? Obviously, something like a divorce is very personal and very impactful to your story and to your life. And if that's what's going to share a story about you, then definitely do that. However, think about how you can approach that. We read a great essay a year or two ago where somebody wrote about the parents' divorce through the perspective of the kitchen table. And it was so well written and so creative, right? It took the same story that we often hear and a similar experience that a lot of people experience, but told it from a very different perspective. I would also, you don't have to write a very personal story. I think sometimes people think that you have to write really, really personal information in order to write a strong essay, and you absolutely don't have to. Look back at some of our examples, right? There was a strong example about a pair of pants. There's a strong example about lobster fishing. These are not very personal experiences, but they were still well-written essays that told a lot about a person. I imagine we're going to get a lot of coronavirus, COVID virus stories in the coming years. And you're fine to do that if that's something that impacted your life. Something to think about is like the Common Application, for example, will have a section for you to talk about how coronavirus impacted you and impacted your progress through school. So you can use that space to talk about how coronavirus impacted you and use your essay to tell us a story about you. Okay, let's see, we did that one. Can I write my essay about something that other people may have experienced, but it feels special to me? I think so. I think you can write about something that someone else experienced, as long as, again, you talk about you. The hesitation that I have with writing about something that someone else experienced is I don't want you to take up. You have a word limit when it comes to these essays. On the Common App, for example, you have a 650 word limit when you're on your essay. And so I don't want you to, or if you use the Coalition app, I think it's 500 words. I don't want you to waste too much space talking about somebody else's experience, right? So I want you to make sure you, if you're going to share about something that someone else experienced, make sure you can summarize that concisely and then talk about the impact that it had on you specifically in the rest of that essay. So I think it's definitely something you can do. You just want to be very careful about it. My question is, what are some common topics overused that we should avoid when writing the essay? I think I listed a couple of them. You know, like I said, those, it's not that you should avoid them. It's just I would, again, really approach them as creatively as you can. What I always say is write what's passionate to you, right? You can be funny in these essays. You can be serious in these essays. There's no rule to what this essay has to be. Just make sure you're capturing that reader. Make sure you're answering what that so what is, and make sure whatever topic it is that you're going to write about, you're connecting it back to why it's important to you. Because at the end of the day, that's, again, right, this is what's important about these essays, is I'm trying to get to who you are as a community member, who you're going to be within our respective school community. Who are you going to be in the dorms? Who are you going to be in the classrooms? Who are you going to be in the dining halls? This is what we're trying to understand. And so like I said, I don't think there's any topics that you should necessarily avoid. Keep in mind that college application readers are often mandatory reporters. So what that means is if you share information about abuse that you're experiencing or harm that you've experienced by a person that you're currently in contact with, it is our responsibility to report that information. Now for international students, that's a little bit more different because you're not in the US. It's still our job to report it to our government when it comes to those kinds of things, if we think that you are being hurt or you're being harmed in any way. So that's something to think about as well. Can the essay be too personal? Yes, it absolutely can be too personal. Sometimes there's just details that we don't need to know in order to learn about you. I often think about breakup stories when things get a little bit too personal in those stories. Think about it this way. Would you be uncomfortable telling your parents this information? Would you be uncomfortable going to a stranger on the like in the middle of a grocery store and telling them this information? If that would make you uncomfortable, you probably should leave it out of the essay. One of my passions is bartending and mixology. Would you advise me how to write about that? That's a really cool thing. That's a great question. I have to probably think about this one. You know, maybe you can look at it from, you can connect a specific recipe about a specific drink and use that to talk about connecting to specific things in your life, right? Like life is all about various ingredients. You know, in a drink, you might have 3 or 4 ingredients and how those 3 or 4 ingredients connect to something within your life. So that's just something that I'm like spitballing here on the top of my head. I think you can get really, really creative with that. I think I have not seen something from that perspective. So I think that would be really interesting. Awesome. Thank you for all the compliments. Happy to help. Are we supposed to focus more on our personal experience or why we think we fit the particular college? That's a great question. Or maybe balance these two things. I would say focus on your personal experience primarily. And then if you can paint a picture for the reader, that always helps, right? So you can talk about your personal experience and why this was impactful to you, and then what that's taught you, and how you can then connect that to what you hope to accomplish in college, right? So, let's take that lobster fishing example, right? This person learned skills of, this is something that they did outside every day. They loved being outside. It taught them skills and determination and hard work. And now here's what where I'm going to take that skill, those determination and hard work. I'm going to apply that to my studies. I'm going to apply that to be the best student leader I could possibly be. Whatever it might be, make sure if you can connect that, that's going to make for a really strong essay. So I think my answer would be balance to both. How can make my college essay stand out? I think that's a little bit of a hard question to answer because there's no one right answer to that. I think there's so many different ways. Like I said, I read over 1,000 applications this past year, and a lot of those essays stood out for both good and bad reasons, right? And then a lot of those essays were fine. We probably admitted the student. Maybe we did it. Maybe we waitlisted them, but I don't remember them really. So make sure that, however you want to approach this essay, talk about it in a way that's personal to you, that you're passionate, that makes it obvious to the reader that this is something that you have a passion for. I think this also, goes into that next question: is how can I write about can I write about my hobbies? Absolutely, write about whatever it is that you're passionate about, and oftentimes that will serve itself in standing out. When it comes to the hobbies question, I would say, if you're going to talk about it in your activities list, if you're going to talk about it, then make sure you just talk about one of those activities and then expand upon it, and then make sure you're making those connections as to why it's important, what it means to you. But writing your own voice and make sure that whatever it is you're writing about it in an effort to explain to the reader why it is that you're passionate about that topic. Is it recommended to include our major of interest in our essay? That's also a really good question. You don't have to by any means. I don't think so. If what it is that you're passionate about also relates to your major, for example, if you're passionate about physics and that's what you want to write your essay on, and that's also what you want your major to be, then I think there's an obvious connection right there. But sometimes, especially when you're applying to liberal arts colleges, a lot of times students don't know what they want to major in, right? I talk to students all the time who they're like, I don't know what I want to go to school for, and that's okay. As a matter of fact, this is a Reed specific thing, but a lot of colleges are similar. You will not select a major when you come into college until the end of your second year. So sometimes you may not even have a major picked yet, or if you do know what you want to major in, you won't be able to select that major for a couple of years. So if you can make those connections, absolutely go for it. If you don't know what you want to study, that's okay. Don't let that stress you out either. You don't have to write about it, but it is a great way for us to learn more about you and learn why you want to major in a specific area, right? If you want to major in specific, tell me why. That's a great use of your essay, is to include that as to why. What kind of information about us are you looking for in an essay? In other words, when you start reading, what are you hoping to find out about us? And also, do people who read essays look at the rest of the application first? That's a great question. Yes, the essay is probably one of the final things that we look at in your application. So we'll look at your, at this point, hold on, I'm trying to think about the order. So we'll look at your biographical information. We'll look at your, I believe we look at your grades first as well, and like GPA. We look at all of that stuff. Yeah, I think the essay is the second to last thing we look at. The last thing we look at is your recommendation letters. So at this point, we've looked at your grades, we've looked at your GPA, we've looked at all of that more quantitative data, and now we're looking at some of that more qualitative data. And again, you know, like Reed, most colleges do a holistic approach, right? So just because we looked at your grades and your GPA already doesn't mean we've necessarily made up our minds about you. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at an application and I'm like, I'm not too excited about those grades, but then when I read your essay or, you know, read your letters of recommendations, I'm like, you know what? I can forgive those grades because of how strong this writing is. And I think looking at it as a whole, I think this student would make a really great addition to our college community. What we're looking for in specific is also kind of a hard question to answer, but essentially what we're looking for is kind of some of the things that we've already talked about, right? We're looking to find out who you are as a person, right? And this college application process is a very introspective process, right? Oftentimes, you're not asked to think about yourself and then to have to sell yourself and paint a picture for who you are. And sometimes that can be an uncomfortable experience, but having to tell a story about your personal, you know, your personal experiences or who you are as an individual, that's an uncomfortable thing to do. That's a hard thing to do, and it takes you know, it takes some real thinking to do that effectively. But that's what we're asking you to do, is to think critically, to think with some depth about who you are as a person, and then how do you want to communicate who you are as a person to us? Because at the end of the day, like I said, you know, that's what we're trying to get at. Who are you? Who are you going to be on our college's campus? Who are you going to be in the dorms? Who are you going to be in all of these various settings? And that's what we're trying to get at. That's what we're trying to look at when we're reading your essays. How much should we include about our academic achievements in the essay? If it's related to what you're writing about, then you could definitely include it. Like, for example, in that trousers essay, I'm not sure where your academic achievements would have fallen into that story. There are other places for you to be able to paint that picture, right? You know, you'll be able to talk about any honors that you have, any awards that you've received, any kind of accolades that you received, any kind of, you know, scholarships that you've won. There are specific sections in the application for you to talk about all of that. At the end of the day, there's also a section called additional information. And this is your place for you to put any additional information, and this is a very underutilized section of the application, in my honest opinion. If you've already filled out your whole application and you think to yourself, I want to tell the reader this thing about me, I want the admissions counselor to know this about me, but I didn't know where to put it in the application, throw that in the additional information section, right? That's a section for you to do whatever you want with, and to tell us whatever else you want us to know about you. So use that space to your advantage. If you don't feel like you were able to highlight an academic achievement anywhere else in the application as well as you would have liked to, put that in the additional information section. If your essay talked about one specific thing about you, but you want us to know something else about you, put that in the additional information section. That's a great place for you to do that. I wonder whether Reed College will accept Duolingo language test instead of TOEFL now in the time of the pandemic. At the moment, we are not accepting Duolingo. I'm in the process of doing some research on Duolingo. I actually have a committee that I've tasked at doing some work for me to look into this. It may come down in the future. So at the present moment, we are not accepting Duolingo. We are only accepting SAT, ACT, TOEFL, and IELTS. I'm hoping I can get Duolingo to work, but I have to do some more research on it. Is it a good idea to email the admissions counselor for whatever question you might have and or clarification. Absolutely. Your admissions counselor is your go-to person for that college, right? Like I said, their job is to help you navigate this process. We recognize applying to colleges, especially in the US, is a complicated process, right? And there's a lot of individual pieces. If you have questions, please, 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 I promise you, your admissions counselor wants to hear from you. You will not be bothering them. You will not be disturbing them. They're not scary people. We all go into this work because this is the stuff that we're passionate about. I love talking to students. I love helping students. This is the stuff that makes me wake up in the morning, right? So don't be afraid to reach out and ask your questions to your admissions counselor. This is their job, right? This is what we're getting paid to do, is to talk to you and to help you navigate these things. So if you come to me, that makes my life easier, because then I know how to answer your questions without me having to guess how I can help you the best. So please, please, please reach out to your admissions counselor. If you're looking at Reed, I will be your admissions counselor. Hopefully you think I'm a nice guy. Please send me your questions, send your admissions counselor's questions. I didn't finish putting in my contact information just in case, reed.edu. So this is my contact information. It's Devvrat, so it's my last name, D-E, that's 2 V's, so D-E-V-V-R-A-T @reed.edu. And that's how you can get a hold of me. If you have questions about essay writing and you're not applying to Reed, I'm okay with that too. If I can help you get into another college, that's fine too. As long as you get into this college that's your best fit, that's all. That would make my day. All right, let's see. Not exactly related to essays, but do people that have a background in our major interest look at our application? If not, can we request it? That's a good question. That's going to depend from college to college. At Reed, we don't have someone look at your application from the area of interest because we don't let you pick a major till the end of your sophomore year anyways. When we admit you to the college, you're admitted to every major at the college. And oftentimes, part of the reason why students don't pick a major right at the beginning is because the percentage of people that switch majors is so high, especially in the US, that we want you to be in college for a couple of years, try multiple areas first, and then pick a major. That was what happened to me when I was in college. I thought I was going to go in and major in business. I changed my majors 6 times in college, my friends. 6 times. And I left college in 5.5 years, not majoring in business, but majoring in something completely different. And so that's why, as specifically at Reed, we don't have people within the specific department look at it, because if you indicate that you're a physics student and then a physics person looked at your application and then you switch to biology, well, those are different things that we're looking at, right? Or forget even within the STEM, maybe you switch to creative writing. So that's why we don't. When we're reviewing applications, we're reviewing an application to let you into the college. The major selection, that's when you're ready to select a major, you will meet with an academic advisor within that department. You'll have a conversation with them, and then you'll switch into that major. Any particular advice for writing essays for medical sciences? What should we put and what should we avoid? That's a great question. I think that's also going to depend from school to school. Like I just mentioned, even if you're interested in medical sciences, your admission to the college and your application to the college is related is done as a whole, and you're accepted to the college or not accepted, regardless of what major of choice that you're interested in. And so that is why I don't know that I have advice in particular in medical sciences. I just personally, we don't rate applications for specific majors, so I don't know that I have anything for you on medical sciences specifically. I also think if you're going into a program that's specifically related to medical sciences, you would want to maybe emphasize some of the other sections of the application a little bit more strongly, like your courses, your grades, some of those other things. I probably have time for one more question if someone has questions. Otherwise, I do have another meeting I have to run to. I have another student. while you are thinking, I also just wanted to put this in there as well. If you're interested in learning more about Read, you can go ahead and you can click on this link and fill out that form, and that'll get you into our database, and we'll start emailing you information about Read, including deadlines when applications are open, and you'll hear more from me, things like that, if you're interested in learning more about Read specifically. Otherwise, you all have my contact information right there in the chat box. So you're always welcome to email me as well. Even if you're not on this call, but you see this presentation on the website later, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to help. Otherwise, everyone, you have a great day. I know it's evening for you, it's morning for me. So hopefully you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Dev. Have a wonderful day too. It was wonderful. The session, I think, was super helpful, and I'm glad that students had so many questions.
Great, great. Awesome.
Okay.
Love to hear it.
Okay. Have a nice day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.